If your views are increasing but your revenue is not, then something is broken. Unfortunately, I see this all the time. It's never been easier to build a following, only for that to mean absolutely nothing. Most creators are better at capturing attention than capturing a return on that attention. They drive a ton of views, but they don't see that translate into revenue. I'm gonna show you how to fix it. In this video, I'm gonna show you the 2 main levers that you can pull to increase revenue in your creator business. So anytime it comes to revenue growth, I think there are 2 main levers you can pull. One is traffic and the other is conversion. Traffic being more attention to your stuff, and conversion being more of the attention you're getting, taking some form of action that you think downstream eventually will become revenue for your business. I think a lot of people actually start here on traffic, but typically I actually like to start on the conversion side, because if you are converting 1 out of 10 customers, that's, 10% conversion. And for every 100 visitors, you'll get 10 customers, to make simple math. If you increase your conversion to 15% or 20%, that means for the same 100 visitors, you would get 15 or 20 customers. Which means if you double traffic and you're getting 10%, then that's 20 customers. If you double traffic and you're getting 20%, that's 40 customers. So you can see this is a force multiplier. When you improve conversion first, then traffic improvements have a much higher return. So when I talk about conversion, what does that mean? At any point that you want the listener, the reader, the viewer, at any point you want your audience to take a specific action, that is a conversion point. So what are the conversion points that I'm thinking about that are important in my business? Well, I just listed 3 of them, okay? Converting social traffic to email is one of the biggest. Email is arguably the greatest asset that I have in the business, my email list. This is, anyone who has traded over their email address is saying, I'm giving you permission to send me messages, and I will continue to receive them for as long as I consent to receive them. People can unsubscribe at any time. But what's magical about email, and I know I'm probably preaching to the choir to a lot of you, it's a relationship you control. On social media, there's a platform in between you and your followers. It is not guaranteed that anybody who clicks a follow button on some platform is ever going to see your content again. There is no guarantee. There's no guarantee that your followers will actually see the things that you make. However, in email, it is much more reliable. It's not perfectly reliable because, of course, email inboxes have some degree of power. Gmail will try to filter things into promotions or different tabs. Apple Mail is the same way. But by and large, if someone says, I'm giving you permission to email me, that email will end up in their inbox in a chronological order. And if they've engaged with your emails before, opening them, replying to them, it's much more likely it's going to show up in their primary inbox right in front of them. It's more reliable. The other great thing about email is the distance between receiving an email and clicking to some page where I can take some sort of action is just much shorter. It's a lot easier to get people from email to a landing page, a sales page, some other asset than it is on social media. On social media, it's much more difficult to get people off of social media because those platforms don't want you to get people off of social media. So the game is, how can I get people away from my discovery platforms, social media, YouTube, and into email? And this has gotten much more difficult in the world of social. It used to be that on Twitter, now X, I could post a thread. At the end of the thread, I would have a tweet that says, if you like this, you would like my newsletter. That type of strategy did very, very well on X. It still does okay on LinkedIn, but it's not really what's driving subscribers now for folks like me. It doesn't work as well on X, doesn't work as well really anywhere. And so what I am focusing more on is, what I'm focusing more on is getting people from YouTube to email, because I see YouTube as the best, most reliable discovery platform that I have. Now, granted, it is hard to continue to get traffic on YouTube. If you make a great video and it does well and continues to get evergreen traffic for you, that is wonderful. And you want to build a library of videos and assets like that. Our Jenny Hoyo's video has almost 4 million views all time. It's getting thousands of views per day still. That's an incredible asset. Something I made nearly 2 years ago at this point, is still getting thousands of views per day. That is a wonderful asset, and that's the power of YouTube. Now, what I didn't do well with that video is having some sort of mechanism or some sort of reason why people watching that video should convert to an email subscriber, or even how to convert to an email subscriber. And that is our big priority this year on the email conversion front, is to say every single video that we publish on YouTube will have some relevant asset that goes along with it, so that during the video, I can call out audibly, show it on screen. By the way, we have a companion resource for this video. It's linked at the top of the description. We just released a video explaining my launch process for Creator HQ from last April. In the video, we say, by the way, these graphics, these resources, the template of an email I sent to ask for testimonials, all of this is included in the link at the top of the description. And the goal is some percentage of viewers to the video are compelled to take the action of saying, I want these resources, I want this additional context. They go to the link in the description, and that is a form to our email list. It's built in Kit. Basically what I do is I make a new form in Kit for every one of these videos. I embed it on a new page on the website that's specific for this video. And when people download the resource, I can see what form they came from. The link I use in the description is a link from short.io that redirects to that specific page. So I can see how many people from YouTube are clicking on that link. I can see how many people from YouTube are subscribing to this resource. And I can get a sense for which videos, which calls to action work best for getting people from YouTube to email. And then behind the scenes, we're building more sequences and processes, automations to try to get people from the point of subscribing to getting them all the best resources that they could want in their business, and then eventually leading them to a purchase if it makes sense for them. So that's the name of the game on YouTube this year, is can we measure and attribute direct traffic from YouTube to email, and then from email to eventually becoming a customer at some point. That is our biggest conversion goal for discovery traffic in the business. Other platforms, I think LinkedIn still has opportunity. It's harder to do this on Instagram and TikTok. Certainly easier on Instagram than TikTok. You know, the way people used to do this deplatforming from social to email was with a quiz or go to the link in my bio. What we see more and more now is conversational marketing and automation. We had an episode with Natasha Willis a few months ago. She told us a lot about Instagram automation using ManyChat. And so a lot of people on Instagram in particular will say, just like our YouTube strategy, I made a resource, comment this word, and I'll send it to you. And that transaction, that conversation happens in direct messages. And then people subscribe via direct message. Then they get into the email system. That's the next step once we figure out this YouTube system. But my Instagram account is not nearly as effective as my YouTube channel for getting new traffic. And so we're focusing on YouTube first. Next, I am constantly trying to get more people to listen to the audio podcast. This is another point of conversion that matters to me, because when I look at the data of folks who apply to the lab, which is my main offer, 60% of people who apply to the lab tell me they listen to this show. And so I know that the highest contributor, the biggest contributor to new members of the community, both in terms of volume and in terms of quality, is this show. So how do I get more people listening to the podcast? Notoriously difficult thing to do. The only person that really approaches this with any level of vigor and research is Chris Hutchins that I found. Chris Hutchins was on the show in episode 177. I'll link it in the show notes. And he has done a lot more research on how to actually grow your audio show than anybody else, in my opinion. And really, it seems to come down, in his opinion, to three things. One is being a guest on other shows. Two is doing cross promos, which is basically like a short snippet, an ad read by the host for another show, and you do it on each other's shows. The third is feed drops, meaning you actually drop an episode of your podcast into somebody else's feed. I think there's a fourth that probably he would count as guesting, which is basically saying, let's co-create 2 episodes. Let's talk for 2 hours. Let's divide it in half. I'll post 1 episode on my channel. You post 1 episode on your feed. and then we'll release them the same week and say, if you want the other half of this conversation, go listen to this show. So I'm going to try that in audio, but I also believe that I can get people from email to podcasting slowly, painfully over time by continuously talking about the podcast. And the best success I've had in this so far is not by sending an email and saying, hey, there's a new episode of the podcast, go listen to it, but by structuring the body of an email around one of the points that was made in the podcast and saying, by the way, there's a lot more about this in today's episode, or this was taken from today's episode of the podcast where you'll also learn X, Y, and Z. So the email itself needs to be standalone valuable because most people will not click to go listen to the podcast. So if the email just says, go listen to my podcast, and most people don't click to the show, that means they just had a bad experience in email. So you need to make the email itself valuable and do that by pulling an insight from the show and then let people know, here is where you can listen to the full episode. I'm going to continue to do that in email. And then eventually, conversion really comes down to, can we convert email subscribers, audio listeners into customers where it makes sense and serves those people? I am somebody who doesn't love doing launches. I prefer to sell my products evergreen because the best way to do launches is to have some level of scarcity, urgency. These are just the levers that get people to purchase because there's a forcing function there. And people know this, but I think it leads to a lot of dishonesty, bad activity, people kind of making false urgency and false scarcity just for the sake of getting people to make a high pressure decision. So I don't like that. I don't like the work that leads up to launches. What I prefer to think about is anticipation. Can I make something that people are really excited about and talk about it for a long time before it's available so that when it finally is available for purchase, people have been anticipating it. They've already decided they want it, and now they can make that purchasing decision. I also really like having incentives for fast action, whether that is having a specific discount for people who signed up for the waitlist early as a thank you. The people who purchase something early are likely your biggest fans. And I think it's a good practice to give your biggest fans the best price and best opportunity when they are taking action early. I'm thinking about email and podcasting and how do we get people to be aware of our products at the time where it matters to them without doing launches or some sort of fake urgency. And really what I do is I talk about the products. You know, I'm always surprised, but then I think, okay, that's obvious. The more you talk about your products, the more sales you'll have. And so if you're not getting enough sales, consider talking about your products more. And I think that will help. When it comes to purchasing products, the question is, which products are you promoting? Which products are you trying to get people to purchase? A lot of creators, when they're trying to drum up new revenue, they think, I need to create a new product because when I make and launch a new product, people come out of the woodwork and they purchase and it's awesome. And I've been there. I get that. I've had that experience as well. The last new product I launched was a 4-hour workshop with my producer, Connor, where we talked about building a YouTube channel around a podcast. That did better than I was expecting. That did somewhere around $26,000 in sales in a few days leading up to the workshop. Much better outcome than I was expecting. So I feel the urge at times also to say, let's build a new product. But the thing I come back to a lot, even with that great outcome with that product, my top product, the lab, my biggest offer, generates far and away the most revenue in the business. And every time I think I should make a new product, I ask myself, but what would happen if I took that same effort and made the lab better and talked about the lab more or in a different way? Because the outcome is likely much, much better than making a new V1 of a product. I can make V10 of the lab, like the 10th cycle of improvement on the best offer. And the reason that this is compelling is things that are remarkable are typically made and improved upon for literal years, and also things that have the greatest competitive advantage, competitive moat protecting them, are things that have been improved for years because that is your defense against somebody new entering the market and making a competing product. Sure, you can do that, but I've been doing this for years and I'm going to improve my product at the same pace that you are going to improve yours which means I naturally have a multi-year edge on you. So every time I think about creating a new product, I come back to the lab and say, let's just make the lab better. Something we're doing right now is I am about to spin up another round of masterminds within the community. I've tried this in the past and it has failed in the past because it's really tough to have masterminds in a community sustain if you don't have a clear leader in that group. So I think I have a new solution for solving the leadership problem, and I'm excited about it. And the great thing is, I think this is going to add huge value to the community. And when it comes to, okay, well, should I increase the price for that value? I'm not going to do it. I'm going to keep the price exactly the same. I'm going to continue to make the product better and more valuable without raising the price. I think the prices are at a great place for standard and VIP and even the basic tier. And I just want to make those products better and better. So it becomes both an easier yes to join for the first time, but more importantly, I want renewals to be a no-brainer year in and year out. I think the lab can provide so much value in just a couple of exchanges that there's just no reason you should think about not renewing if you are putting in some effort to be in the community and seek out some of that help. One example we had in the community this past week, we had a creator ask a question. He was considering investing in a certain program. And it was not a cheap program. It was like a $10,000 program. And he asked, has anyone had experience with this? Would you invest in it? And a lot of people in the community had experience with it. They said, I would not invest in it. That's a $10,000 ROI in one post in the community. So I'm excited about this. I got a little bit off track. But I'm excited about this mastermind program, making it better. As I think about my next educational product, I think about my signature products course. I'm going to build that and launch it in the lab. I'm going to do that for members of the lab first before I ever think about selling it publicly, because it's a great way to test things. It makes that product better and more valuable. And ultimately, in a membership, you really shouldn't be optimizing for new members. You should be optimizing for member retention. Anyway, we're talking about conversion here. Sorry, I got a little bit off on a tangent. We're talking about conversion. The biggest question is, what is the product I'm trying to sell? And my takeaway for you is you should focus on fewer products. You should focus on a signature product and say, let's improve conversion to that product and get that really, really working before we ever consider building some new product. And when it comes to, okay, we have traffic, we're trying to get people to purchase our signature product. A lot of this comes down to messaging and positioning. How do you position this product against alternatives? And then how do you message the value of this product? Positioning is really important because people need to have a clear reason for what will this product do for me and why is it a different offering than other things I'm aware of or taking no action at all. And I don't think a lot of creators are clear about this. What makes your product different and why is it better than alternatives, including not taking any action? We focus on all of this stuff. Here's all the stuff you're going to get in this product, but that doesn't necessarily position this against other alternatives or not doing anything. All that does is try to overload people with things we think they ascribe value to. But really, we want to say this is going to solve your problem, and it's going to solve your problem better than the alternatives. And here's why you should believe us. And that whole story is kind of the messaging that goes into this. If you're trying to improve conversion, I think you can do that by being more clear in your positioning and playing with the messaging. If it's not converting very well, we need to say, how can we message this better? And most of the time, it's as simple as focusing on the benefits rather than the features. Because again, a lot of times, sales pages, sales copy, it's overloaded with the stuff. Here's all the stuff you're gonna get. But when people are making a purchasing decision, what they wanna know is this for me? Will this solve my problem? Why should I trust you that this will solve my problem? Is this for me? How can you make this seem like, yes, this is obviously built just for someone like me? If I believe this is built for someone like me and solves a specific problem or desire that I have, then the question is, why should I trust that this product will actually deliver on that promise. And that all comes from social proof. That comes from other people saying, I use this product, I got this outcome. I'm clearly somebody like you. Social proof goes so much further in getting a sale than any amount of stuff, any amount of features that you can point to on the sales page. Most product sales pages can be so much better by being very clear. This is the problem we solve. We solve it for this type of person. In fact, here are 10 examples of this type of person saying this product solved the problem for them. If that was just your sales page, sale over. People will convert. So I would revisit that. Is it very clear what your product does, who it does it for, and do you have examples of people like that saying, yes, this is true, and here's the results? That's the conversion side of things. As I'm thinking about increasing revenue in 2025, I'm thinking, okay, what products am I going to focus on? The answer is the lab. Lab, a little bit Creator HQ, but mostly I want to get more folks into the lab at all levels. Standard and VIP if you're eligible for those levels, if you pass the application, and basic if you're not, because I want the basic membership to help get people to the standard and VIP level. The lab is the best product I have built. It has the highest revenue potential and the highest customer satisfaction of anything that I've built. And so instead of building new things, I should just sell more units of the lab, sell more memberships. How can I do that? Improving messaging and positioning. I'm going to say, this is what this product does. This is how it solves it. I didn't have any messaging on the sales page about the basic membership really until this week. It was a big effort this week as we improved messaging on the sales page to say, here's the value of the basic membership if you're not eligible for standard and VIP, because I know from my analytics that 80% of my audience is not eligible for standard and VIP. If that's you, consider the basic membership will get you to the point where you are eligible and you can join. It also didn't say anything about the in-person events that we do. So now we have photos on the sales page of some of the in-person events that we've done, some more information about that, so that that is a more clear positioning difference against other online communities. We're doing stuff offline as well. That is what I'm trying to improve in conversion, but what converts? Traffic converts. How am I getting traffic? How am I getting more traffic into the business? How can you get more traffic into your business so you can convert more of it into customers? There's a few levers to pull here as well. The first one being platform strategy. Where are you operating? What kind of content are you making? How are you getting traffic to you? And when it comes to your own content, you need to choose what platforms you're going to put effort into. I broadly categorize all platforms into one of two camps. First one being relationship platforms, second one being discovery platforms. You may have heard me talk about this before. Relationship platforms are systems of distribution where you have a direct line of communication to the end consumer. This is podcasting, email, SMS, private communities. It's great because you control that line of communication. It's more reliable than a discovery platform. It's challenging because you have to draw people into those platforms. In a lot of ways, those aren't even really traffic platforms. You're not getting new traffic to you in those circumstances most of the time because there's not a built-in discovery mechanism. There's no algorithm. There's no third-party platform that's incentivized to connect consumers with your content. That is what discovery platforms are for. And discovery platforms are typically social media and YouTube. So I tell people to focus on one discovery platform, one relationship platform, and that is your content strategy. And the more similar in medium these two things are, the better off you are. For example, if you are focused on email as your relationship platform, you might want to choose a discovery platform that is more text-based than audio or video-based, because consumers of text-based content are more likely to want more text-based content. If I like reading your content on LinkedIn or X, I'm more easily going to convert to an email subscriber than if you are putting reels on Instagram. If you're creating reels and that's how I know your content, it's going to be a little bit harder of a transition to go from reels viewer to email reader than LinkedIn reader to email reader. Does that make sense? So depending on your relationship platform of choice, email, podcasting, private communities where you might do video, you might do writing, you might want to focus on discovery platforms that map to that. That being said, It is undeniable that in 2025, video is the most leverageable asset type, asset class, I guess. Long form video can easily be broken into short form video. Short form video can be shared on literally every short form platform or discovery platform today. So if you are compelled to learn video, especially if you have the skill set to do video well already, video is a huge opportunity today in 2025 because it's just such a portable, repurposable asset. And that's a large reason why I'm thinking about our company becoming more of a video first company. Because if we make long form YouTube videos that can be more easily broken up into short form, or if I just have a beautiful studio where I can come and sit down and record a short form video really quickly, then that asset can be syndicated, distributed across Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, X, everywhere. Short form video can be put everywhere. When it comes to traffic, you need to think about your content platform strategy. And depending on how large your team is, you'll want to exercise some restraint in how many platforms you go after. Because content platforms, especially discovery platforms, they're a competitive sport these days. It is difficult to get attention on these platforms because there's more and more people competing for what is finite attention. And all this attention is being squeezed into the For You feed, the main feeds of these platforms, where the platform says, we know your interest graph. We're going to share with you what we think you'll find interesting, regardless of who you follow. So increasingly, you are competing with like every content creator on the planet on each of these platforms. And if you're going to compete with the best of the best on any platform, you're going to have a really high standard for what is good content for you on that platform. And so I think exercising restraint in how many platforms you're tackling, especially, if you're trying to cross mediums, like it's a big proposition to say, I'm going to write on LinkedIn and I'm also going to make great short form content on TikTok. Those are two wildly different types of content. And if you as an individual are trying to do both of them at a world-class level, you better be spending a lot of time consuming and practicing and pushing yourself to get better at that content, or it's just not going to stand out and compete. And over time, it's going to be a higher and higher opportunity cost to focus on both rather than focusing on one. For us, this is why I hire really talented people within the content team, specifically for video. It's not a skill set I have. And even if I spent all of my time trying to get better at video, I wouldn't be as good as somebody who could somehow spend more time. And there are so many activities in the business that I have to do. I can't spend all my time on video. So there's always going to be somebody who has a better skill set in video than I do. And that's why I hire it out. But video is also, again, the most expensive set of skills you need to hire. You need to hire editors. You might need to hire a thumbnail producer. We have an audio engineer on our team as well. And we have a producer, so we have 4 roles on the video team that are not me: producer, editor, thumbnail designer, audio engineer. That's definitely a higher powered approach than you need to take right out of the gate. But again, if you're doing video, you're competing with people like me who are willing to invest that kind of stuff into video. So if you're not going to invest at that level, you need to be really good at making just compelling video, which you don't need to have high production to make compelling video. You can be a great storyteller, you can have a great message, and you can deliver it in a really engaging way. And if you can do that, then production is secondary. Of course, you pair it with great production and it's even more powerful. But if you can do great storytelling, really engaging on-camera presence, production can be secondary. Anyway, when it comes to traffic, choose your platform strategy and exercise restraint. Ask yourself, do I need to do this platform right now as well? Or can I focus on this platform over here? Can I focus on this platform over here? Then the question is, how do I balance content volume versus content quality? Now, I have an interview coming out soon with a guy named Caleb Ralston. Caleb was behind the scenes with Gary Vee and then the Hermosies most recently. And he kept describing this approach that he took and his teams that he called the accordion. And he said, like an accordion, we would sometimes stretch out what we were trying to do, expand what we were trying to do in terms of how many pieces of content we're putting out. Now, I think he told me that they were putting out 600 pieces of content per week for the Hermoses. I don't know if you and I are playing that game or if we'll ever be playing that game. But his point was, there is a value in creating a higher volume of content, stretching out the accordion. But if you find that you are not reaching your own standard of excellence, or if this content is just not performing, then you constrict the accordion, you shrink things back down to raise your standard, raise the bar of what you think is good content before trying to stretch it out again. You know, stretch yourself, try to do more. If you can't quite hit your own standard, restrict, hit your standard, and then try to stretch again and say, can we make that standard at a higher volume? I really like that metaphor. I really like that idea. And for the last few months, we have really restricted the accordion on the YouTube channel to say, let's focus on quality of our videos. We have a limited team. We have limited team resources. Let's put more effort into making better, higher performing videos and do fewer of them. That's why we have 4 episodes of the podcast every month and 1 or 2 videos. That works well when it works, but then sometimes, against your best efforts, a video doesn't perform. And that's really frustrating when you take fewer shots on goal and none of those shots hit. It feels really frustrating. So right now we're in a season of, we're expanding the team, we're expanding the accordion, we're taking more shots to get more data on what works for us. And eventually, when we get more signal of, okay, this seems to be working well for us, we're probably going to restrict the accordion again and do those videos at a higher level. I do think generally in 2025, because volume has become easier to attain in terms of creating content with different AI tools that are out there, you can certainly create a high volume of content. The new scarce resource is just high quality, high signal to noise ratio content. After we had our daughter, I took to LinkedIn and I was complaining about how I have less time than before and it's hard for me to keep up with the output of content that I was accustomed to. And Samir from Colin and Samir commented and he said, I think you should consider a less but better approach, a fewer but better approach. And I think he's right for most people. You know, if you're not trying to compete on a pure volume game, or if you're not seeing results from trying to do a volume game, then you might want to say, let's actually do less and do that better. And I think for most creators, that approach will actually perform better for you. A lot of people, including recent guest Brock Johnson, would say, well, maybe, but the more you post, the more you grow. The data doesn't lie. The more you post on Instagram, the more you grow on Instagram. That might be true from a pure following number. But again, there's no guarantee that when you get a new follower, that person's ever going to see your content again. And the most surefire way that your followers will see your content is if it performs well, meaning it's engaging, people enjoy it, they have high satisfaction when they see it. If you aren't able to put in the time and effort to make a good enough piece of content that people enjoy and want to share and want to talk about, want to engage with, then I don't think the volume game matters. I think people just start to tune out and say, this stuff isn't very good, I'm going to stop paying attention to it. One aspect of traffic that not enough people talk about is co-promotion, collaborations, and audience sharing with other creators. This is the shortcut, frankly. There are a lot of people that you've probably seen grow and grow quickly, and you may not even be impressed with their content. How could that be? Well, they likely have some influential friends, and they likely do collaborations, co-promotion, audience sharing with those friends. It is the shortcut if you have the resources, if you have the influence, the relationships, if you can make it a win-win for somebody. When you collaborate and support other creators and they support you and they have an audience, it is just much faster to get a lot of views on your stuff than building your own audience. Now, it's less long-term sustainable because it's going to come down to, well, how often is that creator going to, talk about your stuff? But it can be a great way to kickstart your own audience. Anytime that you can structure and put together some sort of collaboration, co-promotion with another creator, you should look at that as a discovery platform and basically say, how do I take this traffic that's coming from this other creator and convert that new viewer, that new attention into an email subscriber, a podcast listener, a YouTube subscriber, somebody who now is following me for me. That is a huge opportunity. And I know a lot of creators and creatives, they don't worry about audience building on their own. They're not trying to play the treadmill, hamster wheel style of I create content all the time and that grows my audience. They say, I'm going to go and create some excellent project. I'm going to put more time and effort into it than most people and thereby make this effort, this project, more remarkable than most content or things that are made. And I'm going to go to my influential friends who have audiences and say, can I share this idea? Can I share this with your audience? And because it's a higher standard of quality, a more impressive overall project, they will often get those experiences. And if they pay off that experience where the audience enjoys it, they're going to be invited back the next time they have some big project to share. This is the model of authors, filmmakers, actors, they're doing these big projects and then they'll come out every once in a while and do kind of a tour around to talk about that project. And that is the opportunity to share their name and brand and voice and try to get people into their audience to make sharing of the next thing a little bit easier. I think this is an underutilized approach, but I do think it's risky. You eventually long-term want to have your own audience that knows your stuff, loves you, trusts you. And if you are foregoing the opportunity to build that by doing some large creative project and hoping that you get the opportunity to share that with somebody else's audience and that starts to build your audience, that's a big risk that you're taking. So I tend to try to take kind of a middle ground where I am showing up, I am consistently creating value for people in my feeds. Also behind the scenes, I'm trying to do more and more difficult, impressive, high value activities that then are something I can collaborate and co-promote with other people in my audience as well. But it doesn't have to be this big project. Sometimes you can say, hey, let's do a joint webinar. Let's do a joint podcast episode. Let me write an essay and put it in your newsletter. That's a week that you don't have to write an essay. There are lots of ways that you can help somebody find a win-win with somebody else with an audience that might take work off their plate or might provide value to their audience, or maybe it's a future favor with you. Lots of ways that you can collaborate with other creators. And again, this is like the cheat code for growing your audience, even if it's as little as saying, hey, you've done really well on Instagram over here. I'm trying to get started. That type of thing actually goes so far. And a lot of people would say, well, that's an engagement pod. That's bad. There are engagement pods of varying levels of insidiousness, or like bad behavior. But if you have friends who are creating content, don't you support them on those platforms? You don't have to mechanize this and make it some sort of requirement where you say, every time I post something, I'm going to send a link to this group chat and everybody go like and comment on it. No, I'm saying, let your friends know that, hey, in this season of life, I am intentionally putting more effort into Instagram. If you see my content in the feed and you enjoy it, a reply, a comment, a heart, it would go a long way. If you are feeling like, man, I'm not getting the engagement that I want on this platform, are you giving that engagement to other people? Because humans are a reciprocal species. If you are not engaging with other people, they're probably not going to go out of their way to engage with you either. So if you want more people to support your work, maybe you should go first and support more people's work yourself as you go. Now let's assume you have a signature product or know what that is going to be. If you want to learn how to launch that product and earn as much as possible, watch this video where I break down my exact launch strategy that earned more than $60,000 in just 4 days.